Hello, it's Jesse here, and we're going to work on a front brake assembly, mechanical front brake assembly for my 1940 UH. So stay tuned here as we get ready to put this together and get it ready for the bike. Alright, so talking about the parts here, we got the backing plate. This is a repainted 1938 to 1948 backing plate. And the reason why it's 38 to 1940 is because in the Palmer book here, it talks about how later in 38 they added this greaser part here. Because in 37 it didn't have that yet. In 36 it didn't have it either. But anyway, this is the 38 through 40 because this hole here on the anchor is the large one. There's a smaller one for the late 41 and later because as we see here in this parts print, this is a 41 style anchor part here for the cable to go through. So in the 1940 it takes a different one. It takes a larger one here. Got some other Colony parts kits here we'll be talking about as we go through this. And I guess to kind of overview of the parts here, this is the Shackle. This is the spring and the seal and washers and stuff that go inside of here. Also we have some mechanical brakes, so we have the cam here that drives that pushes the brake shoes open. So this is called a mechanical brake because it takes mechanical advantage to make it function, unlike hydraulic brakes, which take fluid to make them function through a piston. And those are usually called like juice brakes or whatever slang term you want to use. But mechanical brakes are the same kind of brakes that are on like semis and stuff, where they take an S-cam that on the air brakes that opens it up and then closes when the mechanical air brake drum functions. But anyways, this is a little bit different, of course. It takes a rod that functions the cam, which is pulled by a cable. So anyway, we'll be going over this as we build it. And then I got a new replica drum because the one I had was like gone and wore out. So, but anyway, and then we got the bolts here that hold it to the star hub, which we'll be building a wheel later in a different video for this front. And so with the rebuilt star hub wheel. So anyways, let's get started here. So first of all, we're gonna work on putting the mechanical stuff in, like the pin here that holds that goes here for the bottom part here on these here. This is actually considered the top though, but I got it sitting towards the bottom, so it'll sit in there like this. It pivots on this pin here when it functions. So when it presses it out, when this thing rotates, presses it out. So anyway, let's get started here. Alright, so we'll start off by just putting these grease zerks in here. We'll put the one in here like this. This is the cadmium one, replacement, replica, reproduction by Colony. And then we have one down here on the operating shaft bushing housing here. So we'll put that one in there. Now when I put the new bushing in though, I had to ream it a little bit so I could get this operating shaft here to actually function inside there. Goes the other way though, but just showing you that it cleaned out. Got a little overspray inside here, so I cleaned that out too. And then we'll just flip it over here. So I got all the parts highlighted that we're going to be using here. It's also another guide for me to keep track of all the components I needed to purchase so I could build this front brake, rebuild it. So, seeing how we're starting down here with the cam, and then there's that brass washer that goes there, and it goes into the plate. Then from the other side we get the lever, this style washer, spacer, and then a lock washer, and then the hex nut. It's all Parkerized parts for 1940. So keep that in mind. So it also tells you which way to put it on. So the outside, of course, is pointing to the outside of the backing plate. So there we go. And then I'll flip it over. We're gonna leave this stuff kind of loose for right now. And there's some stuff we'll be doing when we're putting this together that I won't be totally assembling at the time, because it has to happen later when we put the axle through the wheel and all that stuff, like the spring that goes on the outside here, and the big washer, and of course the cork seal that keeps all the grease inside there. So, but anyways, just goes on like so. And then we put it's kind of a little bit of a press fit on this one, and then we put the lock washer on and the hex nut on. Of course, this is a machine surface built-in washer in it. We've talked about these before in my other videos, but that goes towards the component you're tightening down, so that would go towards the lock washer, of course. We'll leave that kind of somewhat loose for now. There we go. And then now we'll move up to the pivot pin here. The front brake actuating lever. I kind of forgot to talk about this. I just kind of got carried away with putting it together. So this is the early style from like 37 to 1941, big twin one. It has the 3 holes for the solo area here, and then the sidecar one on the very tip here. Now this is a real original one with Parkerized, and they all were Parkerized, but anyways, this is how you can tell is the script. Aftermarket ones don't quite look like this. Guess what makes them different is the 45 had 2 holes, and their the part where it mounts was different. So over here in this Palmer book, we show all the different ones here. So first off here, it talks about in here, and all this writing, it talks about how this one here was the 28 to 29 big twin, and this one here was the 31 to 36 side valve models, and 37 to 40 45s, and 41 45s models. See how it's like it's shaped this direction, and how the one we just put on was like this. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go into detail here. So then in the later Type 2 on 1942 to 1952 solos, 45 models, they went to this style with the 2 holes. But then it was in this square holes and this orientation as well. Big twins, 1937 to 1941, look like this, with the words SC, and then for sidecar, and then solo up here. And the orientation is like this. And then in 42, they went to this style, 2 holes with the same orientation. So anyway, kind of clears it up a little bit. So anyway, I just thought I would mention that since I kind of forgot to. So anyways, the whole purpose of having the holes is the fact that you can adjust stopping power with this front brake. So we have the ability to put the lower connecting unit, pin it in here, any position you want, for the amount of stopping power you want, of course, obviously. So a lot of the times I would see some of these bikes out there, they would have it all at the very tip here to have full full power that they can get out of this front brake, because you know it doesn't hurt to have a good stopping front brake to stop you. So what happens is we put that that retainer piece in here, thread in the cable, and then the cable itself comes down here, hooks to the lower connecting unit, and you'll see all this go together when we start setting it up. But I think I'll probably end up setting mine somewhere around in the middle-ish probably area, and then I don't know, I'll probably end up moving it someday out to here, because then I have the option. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of all I really wanted to say about that. I kind of forgot to mention it. So anyway, stay tuned here as we keep moving along here on this front brake. All right, so for the pivot pin, it has a elongated hole here, so it's got two flat edges and it's got two curves. This is the same way the pin is made too. It's got two flat edges and it's got two curves. So just put in like so, and then rotate it till it falls into the grooves like that. And then we have the locking plate. Locking plate has grips on it to help tighten it up to the surface here. So you just put the gripped edge or the grooved edge towards the plate, and make sure it's nice and centered in there. Then we put the lock washer down, and then we put the hex nut down the same way, the machined edge down. We'll just engage it a little bit for right now. So I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm going to use Loctite on these or not. I mean, maybe I will. I'll put some blue Loctite on when we go to tighten it down. And then we'll flip it over. And now we set up the shoes. All right, so stay tuned. Okay, so I'm with the brake shoes here. We got the springs here. We got one end of the spring hooking upward, and then one other end of the spring hooking downward, and the same with the other spring on the bottom here. Now we're going to set it up just like that, and the factory book here shows it that way as well. So we're just going to do it just like they did. So we'll do this side going down, and then we'll bring it over and hook it up on this side going up. Now inside there, where these hook to, there's little indentations where the spring hooks into and sits. Make sure it's fully engaged on that one, and the one on the other side matches it. Otherwise it would pull kind of crooked. So now same with the bottom one here. We're going to go opposite. So we're going to hook this one on this side from the bottom going up, and this one from the top going down. So I'm going to bring it in closer here. There we go. All right, now we just spread them apart and put them on the backing plate. So stay tuned here. All right, so all I did was use both my hands, and I pull them apart so each ends could touch here. And then what we'll do is we'll work on it again with two hands, and then what we'll do is we'll take it and set it onto here. Now on the top here, it's got a indented area here where the circle part goes around this. So now I'm going to make sure that one of these edges, the back edge there, of course, engages in this groove right through there, and then the other top half moon sections here will be flush on the top here. It's got to be in that groove. We got to make sure it's in that groove. And then, of course, this end here that sits on the cam just sits flat up against it. So, stay tuned here. Alright, so before we get carried with putting the brake shoes on, we want to make sure we have a little bit of some slight amount of grease here, just to reduce the metal-to-metal friction on the pivot bolt here and on this cam here. So we're just going to take a little bit of some of this moly grease right here and just touch the edges here. We don't want too much grease on these brake systems, because this stuff, you know, moves around and gets on the pads. It can be a real disaster. So yeah, it just won't function. So anyway, here we go. Just to keep the metal to metal friction wear from being excessively unnecessary. So later we can come back and we're gonna grease this through the zircon stuff later when we get ready to put it on the bike. We'll hit all the grease zirc points at that time, but then we'll get some really good lube inside there at the time. Alright, so let's move on to putting the pads on. Alright, let's see if we can do this. So, spreading the top apart, going down there, and then we're going to pull the bottom apart here. And then there's that groove. Now we got to pop it down through there. Alright, there's one side, and then there's the other one. There we go. And we got it. Alright, so now that this is all on, we're just going to put the drum on for now. So it so what happens is it will just I'll keep it from like falling off and all that stuff. So it's not a big deal if we do this or not. It's just that it's going to sit for a little bit. I'm kind of at a standstill on working on this bike, so I'm kind of doing this like preparing sub-assembly stuff right now in the meantime until lift opens up, because we got some other stuff going on also. So anyways, there's that. Now we just flip it back over here. Alright, so now we're going to tighten these guys up. Then we'll start digging into some of this stuff here. But in the meantime, these parts over here, I'm going to hold on, put them aside for now. Like I was saying, these kind of like go on when we put this all together onto the front end, which is hopefully coming up here soon. So anyway, we'll tighten these up, our grease zircs. Yeah, we'll probably use blue Loctite on the top pivot stud nut, and then blue Loctite, of course, probably on this actuating cam lever nut. So, yep. All right, that's tight. And then we'll talk about some other parts like the shackle and stuff as we get into this. Okay, so stay tuned here. I'll get some Loctite here on these. Alright, so now we're going to put some Loctite on these nuts here. And the book says to tighten them down securely. It's the original book over here. I think I'll just tighten them down to like 20-25 foot-pounds. And then we got the Loctite helping hold it, so it's not a big deal. So just make sure you got them on the right way. And then turn them down. And then you got this backing plate, lock plate here. We want to make sure this nice curved edge here on this plate kind of matches the curved edge of this backing plate. So it wants to kind of turn sometimes when you do this. So we'll start off kind of slow here and then kind of adjust it so when it does start to turn, it kind of like turns in with this when it rotates. I think that looks pretty good like that. Alright. So I was keeping it from turning as I was doing that. Holding it and kind of like turning the nut at the same time. There we go. Now it's ready to be tightened down the rest of the way. Alright, so now for the other side. Make sure we got it together right. Yep. Machine edged in. Yep. And then we got that square washer, that special washer that has that square hole in it. It's getting pushed down as we go to tighten it up. So, and I can kind of feel it going in there. Yeah, it's set in there. Alright, so now I get the torque wrench out here, and then we'll torque it down, and I'll get the excess Loctite off of here. So, stay tuned. Alright, well, I just got done torquing these down. The reference chart, I referenced it before I torqued them down. So 25 for the smaller one here. And then for this 7/16 one up here, the reference chart said 50. So I torqued that one down to 50. Made sure it's nice and tight. You don't want this coming loose, of course. And of course, this one down here seemed really tight at 25. So we should be good to go. So stay tuned here. Alright, so onto the shackles here as we're working on this front brake. In this Palmer book, there's a segment here on the Springer front brake system. And then in here there's a section where it talks about the front brake shackles for the Springer front end. So now we got two different styles that were almost available in 1940. We had the narrow one, the XF-834. And it was considered narrow compared to the later one that came out in 41 and later bikes, later Springers. In 1940, they decided to flip the grease zerk to the top instead of the bottom. So that's why you can sometimes find two different styles. It took a lot of research to figure this out, but it was kind of vaguely mentioned in here in this Palmer book. But as I was looking through parts and other documents, I was coming across some stuff. So we have everything listed here in this picture from the 45s and then earlier ones. Here's what the narrower one looks like over here. And this is the 40 to 41 style. And then second is the narrow one with it on the bottom. Or this third one here, I guess, in the picture. And anyway, so it goes on to where the later ones, they got thicker, like 42 and so on. But for some reason, we had some on the bottom too. So, anyways, I got two different ones here to choose from. I got the narrow one, looks like kind of belongs on my 40. It was with that front end when I got it. I'm probably going to restore this one and use it because it has it's in really good shape. It's straight. And it's pretty accurate. The bushings are kind of worn, so I'm going to replace them and put a new grease zerk in the top here. But anyways, then repaint it, of course. And this other one here was the thicker style, which came out later. So they're next to each other, you can see it, how the difference is. But, and it has the grease zerk on top as well. And anyways, what makes this stand out for the right one is the fact that it has an untapped boss on this side for a grease zerk. and then on this side it has it as well, but then they put it on the top because when it mounts to the backing plate, this would be considered top, and this end mounts to the fork. We'll be going over that as we keep moving along here, but in the meantime, I'm going to work on getting this cleaned up and repainted, and then we'll reapply it later in the video here. But then at the very end of it, it has an untapped boss as well. Anyways, there's a pin that comes through when it mounts to the front end, and it has a part that screws on. But anyways, we'll see that when we come up. Coming up here, we're going to work on the colony kit here. I'll have it all laid out. I'll show you all the different parts there. And then we'll get this all cleaned up and get it on the front brake assembly as we keep moving forward here. Stay tuned. Okay, I have 3 colony kits laid out here that I just opened up. The first one here is this front brake Shackle rebuilding kit. This kit contains everything needed to restore the front shackle on all Springer front ends from 1940 to 1957. And anyway, it's good for big twins and 45s. And what we got here is in 1949 they were still making the big twin Springer front end for all sidecar models, and then the Springer front end was still on the 45s all the way to 1957. But anyways, and this kit contains a flat washer, lock washer, and a hex nut to hold the front part of the shackle on, a new grease zerk for the shackle itself, the hardware here to hold the rear part of the shackle to the front fork. We got a new bolt here in Parkerized finish like it was originally, the nut to hold it down, and a grease zerk to go in it, and the special keyed washer that locks it. So then next here in these other kits we have the front brake cable sleeve set, its adjuster, and the hex nut to lock it on the front brake backing plate. This fits all 1928 to 1940 models, because in 1941 they changed it up. They made it a smaller anchor bolt like I was talking about earlier, and anyway, and they had a whole different adjusting unit. I don't know if it was an upgrade or not. I mean, it worked probably better, but this is kind of how the 1940 was supposed to look, so I'm going to put the original stuff back on it. And the nice thing about this is it accepts the original style Harley cables. It's left-handed. A lot of the reproduction cables, this is kind of a key note here, because a lot of the reproduction cables that you find aren't wound the right direction. They're wound like right-handed, and you can't put them in the original equipment. So the cable I got a reproduction one, but it was a nice USA made one. It was a little bit more spendier than those cheaper cables, but it was the way to go because it goes inside here and threads into this, and also threads into my original front brake lever as well. So that's really good. And then the other kit we got over here is the front brake control wire lower connection kit. This is a Parkerized reproduction kit of the lower connection assembly used on all 1928 to 1950 45s and 28 to 48 big twins. So what happens here is you run the wire through here, wrap it around, and you tighten it down with this. After you have it hooked onto the lever, that actuating lever, using this pin, popping it through, and you put the washer on and the cotter pin. You'll see all this go together as we're working on the bike coming up, but that's kind of how that all goes together. This kit here, I forgot to name off the kit part numbers. So this kit here, the front brake control wire lower connection kit, that is 2593-5. It's a really awesome reproduction of that. This kit here for the front brake cable sleeve for the the 28 to 40 models, was 9683-2. Really nice reproduction kit there, because a lot of them, you know, they get rusty, and you want them to look nice and still function, so it's nice to replace it. And then this kit here was 8010-10. This was the front brake Shackle rebuilding kit again. So stay tuned here as we keep moving along here. Alright, so working on my original Shackle here from my Springer front fork and front brake assembly here. Just got to pushing the bushings out, getting it ready to clean it up so I can paint it. But the original bushings were pretty worn. There was a lot of wobble and side play when I put the new bolt in here, because my original one was kind of crusty and stuff here, and I didn't want to reuse it. Here's the original bolt, and it's pretty worn out. And then the other part that had the grease zerk and the nut itself is pretty rusty and pitted. So I mean, that's why I went with that new kit that had the new stuff in it. So anyways, it was all encaked in this really fine metal shavings and grease all compounded behind the bushing here. So all I did really was just hooked up a socket with an adapter, so I could get the adapter to kind of go right inside there like that, and then it lined right up. And then I set it on top of here and used the hydraulic press and pressed it right out. It was kind of hard to do one-handed with trying to do the camera, so I wasn't able to record it. But anyways, it's not a big deal. These this kit, the 8010-10 colony kit for the front brake Shackle rebuilding kit, comes with 2 new bushings, so I'll be using those in my new shack, or my Shackle up here for my front end. Look all nice and new again. And then also in that kit comes with a new one of these. This is the part that hooks onto the backing plate for the front, and it's a replacement because they kind of wear out over time. Mine was really good shape, except for it had some gnarling and some, I don't know, threads were kind of mangled up, so I had to like chase them and fix them up. But otherwise, yeah, I was able to use my original one without having to replace it. So anyways, stay tuned. Alright, so we're going to try to record us pressing the bushing back into this Shackle here. So let's get started here. Well, I went up too far, but anyway, I'll hold this part here, I think. Unless you got it. So we lubed it up and stuff first. These new bushings going into this old Shackle here, and then kind of just run in flush with the Shackle. Does that feel, what was it like? Pretty good?
Yeah. Feels like it's the right height.
Alright, we'll move on to the next one then. Alright, so we put that, like I was saying before, we put that adapter in there so it can easily fit inside there and keep from it moving all around and stuff when we go to press it in. So
Close there. Get it centered in there. Like, oh, I want it centered in there. Under the
there we go. There we go, bombed out. Pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Alright, cool. Well, stay tuned. Alright, so this shackle's ready to be painted. Just got done cleaning it up with the wire wheel and pushing the bushings in and everything. So now I'm ready to get it painted. It's originally painted a gloss black finish, so I'll try to do that. Otherwise, they weren't originally chrome plated or nothing like that. But yeah, so like I was doing before in my front fork video, it was a black front end, so of course it's gonna be black shackle and black front brake and everything, so like original. So I'll just check the clearance here on our nice new bolt there, and there we go. Goes right in, and
hardly moves.
Yep, hardly moves. So we should be good there. And these bushings have like 4 holes in them, so they'll they get a lot of grease in them in that way. So
yep, looks good.
Stay tuned. All right, so here we go. Here's the shackle back from the body shop. Just got done getting painted. My original shackle, nice and black again. It's a narrow one, like I was saying earlier, and it's got the casting numbers in it and letters XF-834F, and it's ready to go on the front brake. But I'm gonna put the cadmium plated grease zerk in this thing. Start it here right now, and then what we'll do is when we get it on the front brake backing plate there, we'll tighten it up the rest of the way so I have some leverage for it. So there it is, ready for the front brake assembly. Pretty excited about this. Stay tuned. So let's finish up this front brake assembly here as much as we can right now before we get ready to go on putting it on the bike. Okay, so we got here is the shackle ready to go on, and here's the rear mounting bolt, hooks through the front fork, and then a lock tab washer that locks it to the front fork, keeps it from rotating, and then the coupling nut on the front there that locks it down, and then the grease zerk. So first off, I'm going to put the grease zerk into this first, and then we'll work on putting it all together. So I'm going to use 2 hands here, thread down, and tighten it with a wrench here. So stay tuned here. There we go. We just got done tightening this up. I was really careful, like with the wrenches holding it. I don't want to get all marred up, so I spent extra caution on tightening this up together. I hate it when you slip off one of these things and you're trying to make all this hardware look nice and neat on there, and then you get a big old, rounded edge on some of this stuff, and it's unattractive. So anyway, this turned out all right. And anyway, so let's work on getting this shackle put on. So we'll orientate the shackle like this, because that's the way it goes on the backing plate into the motorcycle. So we got the zerk going up, and that puts this edge out, and then this one inward towards the wheel. So then we're ready to put the rear bolt on. We'll just be attaching this bolt for now, just loosely, because of course we're not mounted to the front end yet. So we'll run this lock tab washer on here, that way we don't misplace it in the meantime, and then make sure that we put this on the right way, because it has the machined edge also on this hardware piece. There we go. All right, then we'll just put it on the backing plate here. There we go. We'll take the flat washer here, and we'll put the 90-degree edge, the sharp edge, towards the item we're tightening, and then the rounded edge outward. And then this colony reproduction nut, we'll put this on the right way, the machined surface inward towards the item we're tightening. Colony does a really good job of reproducing the original style Harley Davidson hardware that they used to machine back in the day. And because they only had their own machine shops back then, making their own nuts and bolts and stuff. Wasn't until later in the 40s where they decided to outsource some of their products to a company called Chandler Products. So after the flat washer, we put the lock washer on, and then that nut. Make sure it goes on the right way, like I was saying. There we go. Like that, and then we can move on to, we'll just work our way down. So we'll move over here to the cable connecting unit here. So the cable threads into this piece, like I was mentioning, I believe, in the earlier part of the video, threads into here. So this is going to be loose for now because we're not going to be putting the cable through here because we don't know where this is going to end up at. You know, it can be anywhere when it's tightened up. Then we'll put the nut on, just to leave it loose though, but just so we don't lose the nut because it's special. Because each nut is like a special size and dimension for each area. So machined edge in. And then when we have it all set up, we'll just put a wrench on the top and the bottom and then sandwich it together right there, and it'll hold it still. Okay, so as the cable comes through here, it comes down to the lower connection unit here. Alright, so for the lower connection unit now, we're going to just set it up for the standard solo here. I'm going to put it there. I can always adjust it later. So what happens is the cable comes through here, wraps around, and then it gets held down by this nut on the top there. But what we'll do here is we'll pin it with this, and then I'll go ahead and put on the flat washer and pop the pin in. Just make sure that the sharp edge goes towards the clevis, and the rounded edge is outward. So, alright, so stay tuned here. There we go, I ran the flat washer up on there, like so, the rounded edge outward, and then push that cotter pin in through there. Didn't fold it over yet because I'm not sure where I'm going to leave my adjustment at. I don't want to, mess up my cotter pin yet until I know what I'm doing there yet. So, still deciding what setting to put it at. Seen it a lot of different ways, so we'll just go from there. And then next here, we're going to be able to just thread this on for now, because then we run our cable around this thing, but I don't have the cable on here yet, so this will just keep me from losing this piece. So there we go. Well, this pretty much ends this segment on this front brake assembly. This is kind of what it looks like when it's all done and ready to go on the bike. So hope you enjoyed this. I got the rear brake to do yet, so I got another brake system to do, and then I'll be ready to put this stuff on the bike hopefully here soon. So in the meantime, I'll protect this thing and keep it all covered up so stuff don't bang into it, chip the paint, all that stuff. Like that could have just happened. But anyways, hope you enjoyed this, and see you again soon.